aptly themed, properly describing what this government is seeking to achieve on behalf of the Dominican people. And Mr. Speaker, I forgot, permit me to make reference to my notes.
Permission granted.
Before I delve into my presentation, Mr. Speaker, I wish to echo the sentiments of my colleagues in extending congratulations to our new Minister of Finance on the presentation of this budget. Permit me also, Mr. Speaker, to convey warm greetings to my constituents, the people of Grand Fort, Montjon, Rivière-Syrique, Fouéal, and Tefem, those within and out of the constituency who have provided me with yet another opportunity to be of service to them. I owe them a debt of gratitude for being the loving and understanding people that they have been, and I want to reassure them that we will work with them to bring further development to the constituency. Mr. Speaker, with this year's budget presentation, we have understood clearly that if we are to adapt to this current global environment that threatens our socio-economic fabric, national interest must be at the forefront of our decision-making. It was for this reason that we engaged in public and stakeholder consultations to ensure that the end product, this budget before us today, is reflective of our people, a people's budget. Despite the challenges, this budget offers hope to all Dominicans, hope for a brighter future. Every citizen who is honest and objective will agree that we hold a track record of caring for our people. We have never wavered in our commitments, and as a government, we have maintained composure in the face of challenges, ever conscious of the fact that we have made promises to our people, promises we kept, and promises we intend to fulfill. So we are not daunted, since we are confident that with sound leadership, we will continue to exercise prudent economic practices, as has always been done, in spite of our limited resources. Dominicans are in safe hands, Mr. Speaker, with this Dominica Labour Party government. We are pursuing a national reset because we are confident that resetting ensures that our social programs in support of our elderly and vulnerable remain a priority. Resetting ensures that the housing needs of our citizens, our youth, and our young professionals will be met. Resetting opens doors for farmers and fisherfolk. And resetting, Mr. Speaker, will bring further development to our health, education, and tourism sectors. This reset is geared towards the continued betterment of the people of Dominica in every facet, every sector. Mr. Speaker, the future is an unknown entity, and the continued prudent management of our limited resources is a call to action for public service, the main provider of essential services. As the former Minister for the Public Service, it is heartwarming to note that this budget caters to the needs of our public officers, and that in this budget, we will see an increase in salaries and the upgrading of positions for the majority of our public officers, something I know that our officers are looking forward to. Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to lead this process from its inception, and I want to extend the sincerest thanks to all our officers who willingly participated in the surveys, our senior public officers, the unions, Honorable Catherine Daniel, our Chief Personnel Officer, the Director of Reform Unit, Permanent Secretaries, and lastly, and certainly by no means least, the CARICAD team, and my PS at that time, and Cabinet Secretary, Ms. Karine Prevost, for their contribution towards the success of this job evaluation and reclassification exercise. Mr. Speaker, I wish to add that this September we will see the implementation of the first phase of this exercise, but government is committed to continuing this and other initiatives to support public officers and improve the delivery of services to the public. Mr. Speaker, I now wish to focus my attention to the Ministry of Culture, Youth Sports, and Community Development, a ministry that I hold dear to my heart, since this was the same ministry once headed by my dear mother. And so, along with my friend and colleague, the Minister of State, Honorable George, we intend to do our utmost to have a successful term of office. I almost teared up, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry. Mr. Speaker, this ministry encompasses 7 departments, and every aspect of the portfolio, whether it be sports, youth, culture, community development, cooperatives, or postal services, is geared towards the upliftment and transformation of the lives of our people. So this ministry can really be called a people's ministry as well. Mr. Speaker, as a government, we understand the importance of youth to our country's development, and we take great pride in investing in our youth. Our aim is to ensure that the young people of this country are placed on a path to personal and professional success. My colleague, Honorable George, has done an excellent job highlighting the work of the ministry in the area of youth and sports. So I would just like to remind them of the many opportunities available to them in education, in agriculture, in skill development. And Mr. Speaker, I pause at this time because 58% of the young people who participated in our Skills Youth program are all employed at this time. These were unemployed youth who came to take in that skill development program, and they are now employed. 58%, more than half, are now employed, Mr. Speaker. This is good stuff. Yes. Housing, the 40 and under, and this continues for those who are listening. Enterprise development, the National Employment Program, and of course, sports. And I want to implore all the youth to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to them. I also wish once again to applaud the work of some of our outstanding athletes, Alec Athenas, my student, everybody, I'm talking about Alec Athenas, I have to take something too. I was a past student. Okay, look, my family on the side there. But it was a past student of mine too. Kavem Hodge, Thayer Laffer, young Stephen Pascal, another student of mine, and Ajani Samuel. That tells you how long I've been in the business. I salute them all, along with all the other sportsmen and women who continue to make us proud in this country. Mr. Speaker, sports development is on the rise, and the world is hearing, looking, and listening. Just last week, Mr. Speaker, we received a container of sporting goods and equipment from our friends in Switzerland. Mr. Speaker, they wanted to assist in the promotion and development of sports. They wrote a letter to us asking to send an officer, all expenses paid, to come to Switzerland to select. They're not just giving it to us, to select the equipment, the supplies we need, so they can load a container of supplies. No, it's too late for that. It has arrived. It has arrived, so the officer went. Mr. Honorable George and I didn't go this time. It has arrived, sir. It's on the port. We have cleared it, and we are going to do our inventory, and then we'll have our handing over ceremonies to the various sports groups, schools, and all other people involved in sports on the island. Don't forget you?
Don't forget Moses.
No, I won't. I wish to thank wholeheartedly our sports coordinator, Mr. Trevor Shillingford, our sports officers at the Ministry of Sports, our youth sports officers who are at schools assisting us with sports, the president and committee members of the various sporting organizations around the island who work above and beyond the call of duty to develop sports in Dominica. Let me also thank our Chief Youth Development Officer, Mr. John Roach, and his team of officers at the Ministry of Youth. At the Ministry of Culture, Mr. Speaker, it is our desire to preserve, develop, and promote Dominica's culture and all its various expressions, facilitate training in the arts, provide support for cultural industries, and strengthen the creative sector. The Cultural Division, which is mandated to preserve and promote our culture, continues to lead, providing the technical and financial support to groups and individuals in the promotion of culture. At the division, preserving our cultural traditions, art forms, and expressions is a priority. Digitization of archived audio-visual media is ongoing for the sole purpose of robust long-term storage and future dissemination. Over the last cycle, we successfully staged all of our festivals following the break we had from the pandemic, including Emancipation Day, our independence celebrations, National Heritage Day, Carnival and Christmas activities, and just last weekend, the Golden Drum Awards, where we honored our cultural luminaries. Mr. Speaker, as a former teacher, I believe that we must invest in our youth if we are to sustain our deep cultural heritage. I am therefore pleased that this year we resumed the Schools Arts Festival during the month of March, where many of our students proudly demonstrated their talent in various disciplines, to include choral speech, vocal solo, instrumental ensemble, traditional and creative dance, theater, and art and craft. I want to thank the students, the staff of all the schools who participated in this year's festival. It is our hope to nurture these talents for continuity in the fields of visual and performing arts. Dumfesta 2023 featured Jazz and Creole, Mayfest, Jesus, Local Government Month, and Lyrics Under the Stars. I think they are learning a lot from the Ministry of Tourism. Eh? These events highlighted the traditional masquerade symposium, a team culture community drive where we honored deserving cultural practitioners, the primary school's Creole Spelling Bee in collaboration with our Committee for Creole, and the Ministry of Education, the DIFA end-of-year concert and Fusion Caribbean Culture Night, to provide training to students of all ages. Additionally, the division is increasing its outreach to schools to increase training in the performing arts. In a few weeks, we will host a summer camp at the Old Mill Cultural Center to provide a variety of cultural experiences, activities, and training to children ages 6 to 17. We are proud to have collaborated with departments within the public service as well as the private sector, and we can boast of a strong relations with the Kalinago community, who are ever so willing to assist us. Right. We also thank the University of the West Indies Open Campus and the local African community for their continued collaboration. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister, in his address to the nation following the last general elections, emphasized the need for the development of cultural enterprises, with a particular focus in the North, the Northeast, and the Kalinago territory. The ministry is honored to have Ms. Rosalind Paul as our chief consultant, spearheading cultural enterprise development. Presently, Mr. Speaker, stakeholder engagements, site visits, and research have been conducted in these targeted areas. The cultural and creative sectors can serve as a tremendous source of employment opportunities and income generation, and through its linkages, can generate spillovers to the wider community and expansion of the rural community. Mr. Speaker, this budget has made provisions directed towards community, cultural heritage, tourism development, all geared towards the growth of cultural enterprises. The idea is that, Mr. Speaker, just as visitors come to enjoy our natural environment, so too increasingly they are seeking a richer experience that our cultural heritage offers. We saw that this year, Mr. Speaker, when based on recommendations, cultural activities were integrated into the Artists Festival. The result was an improved, enjoyable visitor experience. Upon implementation, these creative industries are expected to promote sustainable livelihoods, strengthen community resilience, and expand the rural community. The end results will be events of the highest quality and an appreciation for traditional and cultural expressions, targeting the youth with their predecessors, providing the guidance so that our authenticity is never lost. Mr. Speaker, one of the projects I know that the Dominican public, and more particularly members of the cultural sector, have been eagerly anticipating is the completion of the Arawak House of Culture. I am pleased to report that the internal refurbishment works are almost at completion stage. A new sitting, boy, all you have to see that. New sitting, lighting, they spoke about lighting on a playing field. They don't see lighting yet. Mr. Speaker, and that sound system, yes, and the sound system, these have all been ready and in place. Have them on island. We thank the Dominican public for their patience, and I look forward to welcoming all of you to once more enjoy theater and the arts at the Arawak House of Culture. Mr. Speaker, we cannot operate in isolation. And just as organizations and businesses are called to take up corporate and environmental responsibilities, we advocate also having a cultural responsibility, enhancing and promoting our cultural heritage that we hold so dear. At this time, I wish to thank our Chief Cultural Officer, Mr. Matthew, and the staff of the Cultural Division for their continued efforts at promoting and preserving our culture. Community development. Mr. Speaker, community development rests on the shoulders of the local government department, cooperatives, and the postal services. Local Government Month has been observed since 1989 and has been held annually. This year marked the 34th anniversary, and it was held under the theme, A More Resilient Local Government That Delivers Quality Service. Activities for the month focused on solidifying Council's efforts at enhancing community collective consciousness. Activities included a church service at Grand Fort, climate resilient consultations, workshops on the fight against non-communicable diseases, and a grand sports day and hike promoting our health and wellness program, among others. During this financial year, 23 councils will be inaugurated. Mr. Speaker, what we have noticed is that many of our young people are coming forward to be of service to their communities, and I want to applaud them at this time for this. Orientation sessions are being held for these newly inaugurated councillors in the areas of council ordinance, roles and responsibilities of councillors, financial management, and meeting procedures, all in an effort to produce more efficient, effective village councils. Disaster management. One of the most compelling reasons for a robust disaster management system is the preservation of human life. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware that when disaster strikes, the speed and efficiency with which we respond can make a profound difference in saving lives and property. The Division of Community Development has been working with CREED in the proper execution of a Community Emergency Readiness Initiative series as part of our Climate Resilient Recovery Plan, CRRP 2020 to 2030. Mr. Speaker, through this initiative and working with councils and disaster committees, 332 individuals in 26 vulnerable communities were trained, and I am confident that these communities are now well positioned to respond more effectively and efficiently in the event of a disaster. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, 120 shelter managers also underwent training to hone their knowledge and skills in the execution of their duties. We hope to continue such training workshops on an annual basis. With regards to the community events, Mr. Speaker, we are at the beck and call of all our community groups as we seek to empower our communities in assisting them with community staged events, be it through transportation, assistance in the provision of tents, podiums, or chairs. So now you know it, you know exactly who to call. Our assistance is more clearly seen during the National Day of Community Service when we engage communities in volunteerism on a large scale. I wish to thank our chairpersons, clerks, and councillors, the local government commissioner, and the staff of the local government for their efforts at community development. The Basic Needs Trust Fund. Mr. Speaker, the Basic Needs Trust Fund, BNTF, undertakes poverty reduction initiatives in communities by providing basic infrastructure and skills training, all in an effort to improve the livelihoods of beneficiaries. These projects are funded by the Government of Dominica and the Caribbean Development Bank and fall under three categories: community access and drainage, education and human resource development, and water and sanitation systems enhancement. Mr. Speaker, BNTF 9 projects are now all complete, and all 7 projects were implemented at a total cost of $7,701,777.35. 2 of these projects, the DAPD and the Community High School Extension projects, were commissioned last year. The other 5 projects, Mount Prosper Primary School Security and Sports Facility Upgrade, the Cassiboo Secondary School Production Facility, the Woodford Hill Playing Field Upgrade, the Mount Prosper Water Supply, and the Grand Forks Storm Drain Project, will be officially commissioned during the month of August and September. BNTF 10 will commence full implementation during this financial year, with 8 projects already approved by government. They include the Berean Christian Academy Extension, Trafalgar Basketball Court Upgrade, the Granby Dubic Multi-Purpose Facility completion, the Scott's Head Village Fish Processing Facility, the Paybush Water Enhancement Project, Warner Tank and Deep Irrigation System, the Daly Seas Playing Field Upgrade, and the Clifton Back Road.
Oh, sure.
Mr. Speaker, I see my colleagues are smiling, very happy. That is the job of the government, making people happy. That's what we do. Mr. Speaker, these projects are projected at a cost of $7,629,048.02. These projects will no doubt have significant positive impacts on the residents and communities. Mr. Speaker, I must commend Mr. Carrott and the staff of the BNTF for their consistent effort to ensure that we continue to implement all of these community projects. Cooperatives. Mr. Speaker, cooperatives play a crucial role in the community development. They create employment, stimulate economic growth, and reinvest profits back into their communities, fostering sustainable development. This government acknowledges the importance of cooperatives in a community and have worked to provide the necessary legislative, technical, and policy support needed. Just earlier this year, a team representing the International Labour Organization held consultations with all of our cooperatives across the island to evaluate and provide technical assistance to our cooperatives in an effort to strengthen our sector. I thank the staff at the Cooperatives Division for providing the necessary support to all our cooperatives across the island. At this time, let me offer sincerest thanks to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Sports, Mr. Lucian Blackmore, all our heads of department, junior clerks, and every other public officer within the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports, and Community Development for a job well done during this year. Mr. Speaker, I now move to my constituency. Last December, the people from Mount John and Riviera constituency, to include Grand Fonfoyal and Tefem, once again agreed that the Labour Party was indeed the best choice, giving me yet another opportunity to represent them in Parliament. I wish to thank them once again for this honor bestowed upon me, and once again to give the assurance that this Labour Party government will work to ensure that the plans and programs earmarked for this constituency in this budget will be achieved during this term of office. Mr. Speaker, I refer to some of what has taken place in the past few months. You may have heard of the National Employment Program countless times during this budget, Mr. Speaker, but it is worth mentioning. No one can doubt that the NEP has had a positive impact on the lives of many across the length and breadth of Dominica. Job opportunities, providing care to many of our senior citizens, allowing many, especially our women and youth, to be independent and in a position to provide for themselves and their families. Mr. Speaker, I stand here happy to know that the majority of our young and not so young are all happily engaged under this program at the community, let me stress, at the community, public, and private sector level. Every month, as was disclosed by the Prime Minister in his speech last night, over $150,000 comes to this constituency alone every month, Mr. Speaker. And this is only under the National Employment Beautification Project. We are all aware that job creation is the cornerstone of a thriving and prosperous community. Being employed, Mr. Speaker, is a blessing, And with the increase in stipends to our interns, they are better able to support themselves, to meet their basic needs, and enjoy a better standard of living. So, Mr. Speaker, let's do the math. Simple math. Can you imagine that in one household, where 4 people are engaged under this program, a whopping $4,000 goes to that house alone every month? What a life with this Dominica Labour Party. I want to commend and thank all the interns and the supervisors who are working in this beautification project, who always look back with pride at the work that they are doing in the community. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the work that they do. We have placed them now on the Boadiab to Rosalie Road to take up that road maintenance project that we had. And Mr. Speaker, when I drove up, all I could say was wow. What a wow. Mr. Speaker, they are doing an excellent job. They are transported from Grand Fort every morning, Rosalie, Rivière Syriaque and Mont John, and they go all the way from the Castle Bruce Junction, and they're heading all the way to Rosalie. And Mr. Speaker, but you were there last week. You saw that. You see, all of you trying to say that the speaker from Kings Hill, the speaker from there. You see, the Bible says a man may leave his mother and father. So it goes, right? You went right to Grand Fort to choose one of our beautiful women to have as your wife. So you know about Grand Fort. Thanks for making a good choice. Yes. I must commend Ms. Joellen Jono, Carlos Williams, our supervisors, Juanita Lawrence, Teresa Dangleben, Edwina Hippolyte, and John Suzette, because it's a large group, for doing a fantastic job at getting the work done. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to get carried away, but I also want to highlight our caretakers under the Yes We Care program. Another $12,000 just for that section. The care and attention given to our elderly, Mr. Speaker, is commendable. This Labour-led government has demonstrated over and over that it cares. And I want to thank all my dedicated caretakers, and also Ms. Ryan Stevenson and Joan Lawrence for their supervision. Mr. Speaker, we continue to show concern for our non-contributory pension allowance, or 65s and over. Presently, we have over 80 of our people benefiting from this program. We want no one left behind. All shall enjoy the fruits of labor. School uniforms and books will continue. We have already presented most of our students with their books and are presently working on their uniforms. We are trying to make our office a one-stop shop so parents can come and collect their uniforms, shoes, bags, and stationery from the office and just go home and wait for school to open. Hassle-free, Mr. Speaker. As was stated by the PAL rep for Castle Bruce, Honorable Alfred, earlier, the people of the Southeast were greatly affected by the trough system on November 6. Whilst we in Grand Fort were not as severely affected as Castle Bruce, many of our farmers lost their crops, their farmlands, and community access was a major issue at that time. Mr. Speaker, the people of these constituencies can say that this government is a friend indeed. For as the saying goes, they came through in a crucial time of need. Mr. Speaker, roads were totally impassable. Mont John was cut off from Rivière Syriaque. Rivière Syriaque cut off from Rosalie. And Grand Fort was cut off from everywhere else. Every community was on their own. Mr. Speaker, high praise goes out to our people who braved the landslides and fallen trees with their chainsaws and cutlasses and began clearing the roads. I thank each and every person who came out to help. It was a Herculean task, but they fought their way through until the equipment arrived to do the major clearing. Mr. Speaker, one thing I've noticed with our people, their love for community is deeply portrayed during crises. Mr. Speaker, what was even more heartwarming, touching to say the least, is the efforts of this caring government to come to our aid, bringing much needed food supplies. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, our PM and his team delivered a lot of food. I want to thank this Labour Party government for coming through for us, the people in this constituency, when we needed them most. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, following PM's visit, we sought to find assistance for the farmers who had suffered loss at that time. And I'm happy to say that just about a month ago, we were able to pay over $110,000 to our farmers through the village council. Boy. Hey, thank God. Mr. Speaker, I've been working with the schools to ensure teaching and learning is taking place, and also to create that conducive environment for all teachers and students alike. There is still a lot more that can be done to enhance teaching and learning, and this we will try to do in the next school year. But I wish to thank the principal and staff for their patience and commitment to task, and wish them a restful holiday. Presently, I have the summer school program going on as I speak, and I must applaud the mentors and the few teachers who have willingly consented to engage the students whilst on vacation, with lots of activities, fire drills, health tips, art and craft, field trips, so that the entire time wouldn't be spent in play. Because we all know, Mr. Speaker, what happens to Jack when he plays all day. During the school year, we also worked on completing the fencing around the school because it was quickly becoming a thoroughfare. We have also engaged a few people under the NEP to work on our school garden. I must boast, Mr. Speaker, for our farmers are doing an excellent job. And despite the fact that schools are closed, they report every day, watering, weeding, planting, since our goal is for self-sufficiency. The garden can supply the school's feeding program. So we have planted our vegetables, seasoning, pawpaw, bananas, plantain dashing, just name it, everything. We are teaching our children to grow what they eat. I want to thank the Chinese Agricultural Mission who came to assist us with our greenhouse and seedlings. And of course, heartfelt thanks goes to Mr. Johnson Drygo, a man, Mr. Speaker, who has gone over and beyond the call of duty to make this school garden a reality. I also want to thank our school farmers. Well, they're working in the garden, so I call them farmers, young people, Noelina, Kensha, Foster, McCartney, and the brigade for working diligently to have a garden ready for September. Mr. Speaker, it's our intention to start our chicken farm right there, since we have available land space, so we can provide fresh chicken to the kitchen as well. I have spoken to the Minister of Agriculture, and we have agreed that we will get the materials that we need to start off our program. Thank you, sir. Let me at this time say a big thank you to the cooks who also worked very hard to ensure that food is readily available and prepared for our students. Sports. Mr. Speaker, sports, as we know, is what brings communities together. And you and I both know that the Southeast is the place for sports. As the now newly installed Minister for Sports, I intend to make this area the sports capital of the entire Eastern District. I'm not rushing into it too quickly. Eastern District first, and then we'll take over the country. No bones about it, Mr. Speaker. By now, Mr. Speaker, please ask my colleagues to stop making those comments there. Boy. They tell me that's where the container may be going. By now, everyone knows how the Southeast football team has dominated football. Shakira, I expected you to be cheering, man. Mr. Speaker, boy, Shakira is somewhere else, you know. It's defeat, man. Mr. Speaker, we are the champions. There's nothing we can do about it. And just last week, I handed over a check of $20,000 to enable them to travel to St. Kitts as Dominica's champion team. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Let me check my time. They should have boarded the plane already because they are at the airport today. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of my guys, you know. I know they can do well. And I hope they can come back as winners of the CONCACAF games. Mr. Speaker, last night they had a little farewell ceremony. And I told them if they can make it to the finals, I will take a trip to St. Kitts just to be there for the final game. So let's hope that they do well. I cannot let them down. Mr. Speaker, we have to encourage our young sportsmen. I have been at their beck and call with motivational sessions, their meetings. Well, for the games, I've been there in spirit. I cannot attend every game because I want them to prosper and to be the best that they can be. Yes, teacher. So, Mr. Speaker, what I've noticed is that some of these guys work in town. So practice sessions are late. And there was a time, Mr. Speaker, I was called to give them a little pep talk. But do you know, Mr. Speaker, just on the side, Miriam had some stories, so I'm giving my little one. I know, right? Just on the side, Mr. Speaker, I didn't know who I was talking to. The place is so dark. If these fellas had dig out on me, I can use that word, on me, I wouldn't even know. You know the place, Mr. Speaker. You've been there. So you can see now that lighting has to be a major priority for the area. I am in the driver's seat, my dear colleagues. And I will drive, not at full speed, moderate speed. But I'll get it done. Yes. Yeah. Because I have to remember you all will be stopping me along the way, so I cannot go too fast. Mr. Speaker, I'm also looking into setting up some changing rooms for them. I'll tell you why. The fellas finished playing. My playing field is waterlogged anytime it rains, and you know the Grandpa rain falls every other day. And when these fellas leave the field after winning a game, they want to go and hug their little girlfriend, meet people, but they are soiled up. So we need a little place for them to wash up, change, freshen up, and then go and, you know, hug the little girl, you know what I mean?
I totally agree.
Thank you. Shakira, well.
Say it again.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is something that we don't intend to just do in my area. But we have noticed many other areas have that similar problem, and we are going to try to see how we can do that for them. Still in sports, estimates have been submitted for the upgrading and resurfacing of the Grandfont Hadcourt, which is the center for all activity in the area. That's a meeting place. So again, this year, this is considered in this financial year. Recommendations are also in place for the rehabilitation and restoration of our playing fields. This is budgeted as well. But I want to inform my dear constituents and the sports enthusiasts in the constituency that we will be meeting as a community following this debate to determine the village
15 more minutes.
with the greatest need at this time. I will do like PM. When I'm close, you'll tell me. Because we have 3 playing fields, Mr. Speaker. So I will meet with them to decide which one are we going to work on this financial year. Mr. Speaker, small business in the constituency is growing at a rapid pace, and I want to applaud the young ladies and men who are working tirelessly, seeking alternative avenues for earning an income. During the past months, I collaborated with the Dominica Youth Business Trust, as Mr. Honorable Roll said last night, to have a young entrepreneurs showcase their talents and skills. The event was held at Lapland, was very successful. Of course, someone from Granford won the first place for best stall presentation. But really, it served its purpose. So now we can put things in place to assist them further. But following Lapland's success, requests came in for more events like these. And during Local Government Month, I saw the need to further highlight the work of our small business entrepreneurs in the constituency as well, in what was termed a food and drink festival, along with the village council. We sponsored this event, and this again was a major success. So now, Mr. Speaker, the reason for this was just so people know who they should go to, where they should go if they need something. So now I know exactly who to contact when I'm in need of anything, be it for personal use or for catering services. So I know of Tessa's Cocoa, Janice's Delectables, Lester's Goat Water, Melissa's Pizza, and Kezra's Punch, to name a few. So you get the point. In both events, we prepared the business cards, we made flyers, a good way to earn some extra money for them, and it is our aim at the Ministry of Youth to keep in contact with them and provide further assistance wherever necessary. I thank Honorable Judge and Honorable Roll for assisting, attending, and interacting with the young people during these two activities. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to ensure that we equip our young men and women in all communities with the necessary skills, the Adult Education Division and the Youth Division have engaged our young people, providing training in the areas of interests, and so far, based on their recommendations, we have covered electricity, plumbing, masonry, pallet, furniture making, pastry making, and most recently, solar panel installation. These were very well attended, and it is our hope that we can continue this financial year to move to advanced courses. Just on a quick note, Mr. Speaker, on more community-related matters, because I'm excited, we felt as a community we should uphold our values and reflect on the legacy of those who went before us. So we celebrated and commemorated our Achievement Day feast. Everywhere has a feast. This time I think I'm going to do a Juve like Shakira. I again worked with the community, provided them with the most needed financial support to make our feast day the huge success that it was. So Joanna and team, you all are the best. Thank you for a wonderful Achievement Day feast. I also collaborated with the Village Council this year, Mr. Speaker. I consider myself the platinum sponsor, but we produced one of the best calypso shows ever held in the Southeast. I think Honorable Edwards was there, you know. This was very well attended, and Jemery Philip, the Onion, stole the heart of the judges that night. Onion? The Onion. We intend to stage a bigger and better one next year, making it a Southeast Calypso competition. I thank the chairperson, the clerk, and councillors for working with me throughout all these activities. Mr. Speaker, I have always been deeply rooted in my Catholic faith. And of course, any request by the church will be honored, and they know that. Less than 2 months ago, I made a donation to the Munjon Church, where we installed the ceiling fans and provided proper lighting, because it was really, really hot in this place, man. A funeral, you were burning just like the people in the coffin. A well-deserved gift for them, Mr. Speaker. We are also in the process of rebuilding the village cross at the Foot Beta show. It's hot, very, very hot. So you there in the church, you can't take it. Nah, Patricia. Mr. Speaker, don't try that, that's good. So we are trying to rebuild the village cross at the foot of the village, which was destroyed during Maria. I think it is of great significance to the spiritually inclined, since it serves as a reminder to them of how blessed we are as a people. So this I have agreed to work with the parish priest and get it done. Mr. Speaker, you have noticed that through all these aforementioned undertakings, the people were the primary focus, people development. This, of course, does not take into account the numerous medical, funeral expenses and personal assistance provided, since I consider these on a more personal level. However, with all this done, let us not forget that proper housing, adequate water supply, affordable health care, and improved educational opportunities can positively impact the quality of life of a people. The financial year and during this financial year and during this term of office, I wish to inform my constituents of the following developments coming our way as approved in this budget. Number one, a youth center for Mount John. Mr. Speaker, in the entire Southeast, there is no place for youth officers to work. They move from one place to another. They sit in schools, they sit under a tree, they sit anywhere where they can find a place to do their work. And I felt the need to do a youth center at Mount John so that the officers can meet on a daily basis to discuss whatever it is they want to discuss, but also to have a spot where our young people can meet and carry out their skills development program. Number two, following Hurricane Maria, the Smart Center was shut down in Grand Forks. In this budget, and very soon, I have spoken to the two ministers, one on my right, one on my left. We will see the return of a new and improved digital hub to serve the community. I await applications for supervision and management of this facility from qualified constituents. Mr. Speaker, last year we struggled with the installation of our lights around the community. We will redouble our efforts and explore further areas in Rivière Syriaque in the coming months. Our efforts at providing portable water supply to the village of Rivière Syriaque and Mount John from Grand Forks is still on the cards. Again, the ministers to the right and the left. This UK DFID project by the WASCO will continue during this term of office. It has been a project which has proven quite challenging, Mr. Speaker, I must admit, and with challenges come costs, so it's quite challenging and costly, but we are determined to see it through its completion. Housing will continue, as stated in the budget, where we expect over 300 houses to be constructed around the island. I've always said in this cabinet that Grand Forks is not as bad as many other places, but not being as bad doesn't mean we don't need. So we have a few houses to complete and one or two houses to build. So this time I'm asking, and it is there, so Minister of Housing, I would be honored if you can assist us in completing our houses and giving the few people who need the assistance a new home. Guardrails. The trough system did considerable damage to our roads leading down to Rosalie and some portions of Rivière Syriaque. Since then, road failure signs have been erected and works on these areas will commence at the earliest opportunity, since these pose a huge safety risk for both for pedestrians and vehicular access as well. Mr. Speaker, a playground for our children. You know, I understood that a playground came from what the Minister for the Roseau Central Constituency, or PALREP. And I believe that in the playgrounds that came, one of them, for some strange reason, came with grandfather written on it. I don't know how it happened. I just don't understand. So I'm looking, I'm looking forward, Mr. Speaker, to the erection of a little playground in Granford. We have a lot of children, man. They would enjoy that. I've already identified a spot for it, so we can go ahead. Children, look out. We will be on the playground soon. Last and certainly by no means least, I know all ears are still glued because I've not said what people are waiting to hear. The much talked about, the much needed, the long awaited health center. Constituents of Granford, Mount John, River Syriac, especially Granford, your health center will happen. Mr. Speaker, I said that and shivers went through my spine because I know it's something they want. You know too, you're from Granford, you know they want it. And I look forward to its commencement. I want to thank the Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, and this cabinet that I'm proud to be a part of for considering us in a time of need. Thank you, Jesus. Mr. Speaker, 3 other projects of importance to the community are under review and we'll deal with them momentarily. The Rosalie Bridge, of course, which everybody knows. An alternative route for Mount John community as the road is failing fast. And of course, the Granford Community Resource Center. At this time, Mr. Speaker, I want to express sincere thanks to all my constituents who have come forward to give advice, to say a prayer, to have just a visit or a kind word. To my executive members and constituency groups for their support and encouragement, Nalisa Lawrence, Daniel Coffey, and McCartney Robin, my newly installed presidents, let me remind you that we can do this together. Let us create a stronger, more prosperous, and compassionate community that we can all be proud to call home. At the national level, I wish to implore all our people to make a conscious decision to be part of this government's effort at reset. The success and prosperity of our nation depends on each and every one of us. Every single citizen has a part to play in surmounting the challenges we now face and create a brighter future for us all. Let us unite. Let us pool our efforts, creativity, and resources together and do whatever it takes to build our country. With these words, Mr. Speaker, I reiterate my fullest support of the 2023-2024 budget. I thank you.
Yes, Senator, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, before I begin, I would like to request permission to refer to my notes, please.
Permission granted.
You understand clearly. Mr. Speaker, I rise to deliver my contribution to this fiscal year resilient budget. Firstly, I would like to say it's an honor to be in this honorable house to be a representative for my people during this critical time. I would also like to send out condolences to the family of the late Shaquille Darrow Salisbury, who lost his life tragically on the Salisbury Highway early June. Shaquille was a well-loved and respected young boy in the community of Salisbury. The circumstances surrounding his untimely death is another reminder that there still remains some critical need for the implementation of a road safety policy that seeks to install traffic calming devices, additional pedestrian crossings, traffic signs, and strategically place traffic wardens to help improve and maintain road safety conditions, particularly for pedestrians. Mr. Speaker, over the past days, I had the opportunity to listen to the addresses from various ministers in regards to this fiscal year budget, some of which were very challenging to listen to, like my dear friend from the Rosa South, while others were a bit softer on the air. A budget is needed for financial stability. It is needed to create plans, reach goals, and prepare for any changes. According to the World Bank, a stable financial system is capable of allocating its resources. So far, I can see that this government does not have a stable financial system. As stated by the Honorable Minister for Finance during his presentation of the budget, the fifth pillar for this national reset budget is to ensure financial stability. When a budget is created, it is expected that all the funds are spent effectively and rightfully. For the financial year of July 2023 to June 2024, an estimated total of $1 billion is budgeted towards alleged projects and plans for this country. Going through these 348-page documents, my first observation was that we do not cater enough to the necessary ministries. Our focal point in this budget is not directed to the industries that will effectively and legally boost the economy. Out of this year's budgeted total of an estimated $1 billion, 3.67% is allocated to the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports and Community Development, 1.66% to the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services, 6.77% to the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, 3.04% to the Ministry of Tourism, 19.66% to the Ministry of Public Works, Public Utilities and the Digital Economy, and a percentage of 37.88% to the Office of the Prime Minister. You understanding? Okay. You see where I'm going with this, right? Tourism, 3%. Health, the big health, 2%. Agriculture, 7%. Public Works, 20%. And the Office of the Prime Minister, 38%. However, in each of the budget addresses, the importance of agriculture, health, and tourism will emphasize upon. Every single person on the government side who have already stood up and addressed this budget showing their full support stretch on the importance of health, agriculture, and tourism.
Yes.
Yet, in a budget of estimated $1 billion, only a stipend is given to these ministries. And you guys are still standing there, and I quote, "You ministers on the other side, honorable members, I stand corrected, and I quote, I stand in full support of this budget." But I see why, because when the monies are allocated in the budget for these ministries, the money is not spent. As mentioned by the Honorable Minister for Finance during his presentation of the budget on Tuesday, 25th July, there are 5 pillars for a reset within the government service. The third pillar is, and I quote, greater focus on the productive sector, including the allocation of more of government's resources to projects and programs to facilitate sustainable economic growth and increase the number of permanent jobs available in the country. During the fiscal year of 2022-2023, the Ministry of Tourism had a budgeted amount of $15 million. Out of that total, only $1.6 million was spent. In such an important ministry, $15 million was budgeted. And you mean to tell me you're only spending $1.6 million of that total? So where is the 89% of that estimated budgeted fund? I listened to the Minister for Tourism speaking of all that has been done, all that's coming, and what I did not hear is one of the core values written in this budget book. Look that one. This one, on page 301, accountability.
Yes, I.
Where is the money? Now in this budget, we are asking for another $22 million stipend for tourism, a disrespected total for such a thriving part of the economy. So ask them for more.
Well, use the next.
But if there isn't enough commitment to spend $15 million that was allocated in the last budget, how are we going to ensure that the $22 million is going to be spent? I see zero commitment. Zero. No commitment. Nada. None. Mr. Speaker, if I recall clearly, during the first sitting of Parliament in February of this year, I spoke of the shantytown that was located on Dame Eugenia Charles Boulevard.
Yes.
You know them little non-resilient buildings that was placed there for the vendors?
Right.
That one. When I mentioned that little shantytown, it was implied that I did not care for these hard-working vendors. But it seemed like I cared for them more than who implied this. Because while I was speaking with the hopes that they got a proper facility, one when they had their own washroom and was indeed resilient, the person responsible for ensuring they got something of substance was there not spending money budgeted. And you know what I find funny, Mr. Speaker? This vendors arcade is listed under new projects for a total of $4 million in this fiscal year. And last fiscal year, $13 million was not spent. When you weave these truth and facts into the analysis of promise versus performance, this is incompetency at the highest degree. Now, finally, I can see plans written of the vendors arcade to be part of this year's $22 million budget. It is my plea to the Minister of Tourism to ensure that the hardworking vendors finally get a resilient vendors arcade, not one with little wooden sheds and blue and white tarpaulin for designs. One worth their hard work. I do hope that this project is given a time span and a location and proper plan is made available as soon as possible. It is my hope that the location and plan are already in place and that it will not remain another it's coming situation. I hope that these important projects finally reaches their climax. With this arcade, I do hope that provisions are made for the young hustler who worked hard to bring a different ambience to the Dame Eugenia Charles Boulevard with his bar and unique drinks. In the key resource areas under the Ministry of Tourism, KRA number 5 states new and enhanced tourism products and services. This young hustler introduced a new tourism product, a unique idea, one that will help push this KRA. So I do hope that he does not end up being neglected by a government that is supposed to be for the people and by the people. We speak so strongly of the youth. Now is our time to show the youth that they have your full support in their positive endeavors. Mr. Speaker, I have heard a lot of plans under the Ministry of Tourism, including a marina in Portsmouth. The town of Portsmouth is a very promising town, one in my opinion that has greater potential than Roseau itself. So that marina you're promising the people of Portsmouth, ensure that they get it for me, please. Souple, I beg. Ensure that the 2 years time span Honorable Minister for Finance mentioned is kept. Your colleague, the Parrot for Portsmouth, has been working hard for our constituency. So work with her, help her to help them. Do not let this much-needed investment in the Portsmouth community be one with no beginning and no end, like many other projects. In this fiscal year, I do hope that the core values under the Ministry of Tourism be strictly enforced. It has been proven that the core value of commitment has not been enforced effectively. With commitment, it would have been ensured that the entire budget total for the year is being utilized in areas that is needed to create an effective climate-resilient tourism. The upkeeping of sites, namely the Whitey Kubuli National Trail, which is accessible by numerous damaged, neglected farm access routes. The port of entries, especially the cruise ship terminals, and all other areas need to further enhance the tourism industry. During his presentation of this fiscal year, the Minister of Finance said that there are 4 key areas which will be focused on to achieve our desired results. Key area number 4 states product development. We need to maintain and develop the many attractions and activities that Dominica offers to visitors. We have many natural attractions, but we need to ensure that we make them easily accessible for our visitors to enjoy. Through this, a target of 500,000 visitors by 2030 was mentioned. This is more than 3 times the total we are at right now. It is impossible to achieve the level of visitors experience, access, and so on for the expansion of the tourism industry if the underperformance in the development of the listed project that was mentioned in the last year's budget continues. 1. Tourism site enhancement, budgeted $3,390,932. 2. Support to producers of local juices, $1 million. 3. Small business enterprise development, $500,000. These are just a few listed projects under the Ministry of Tourism for the 2022-2023 budget year, and only $1.6 million was spent.
Wow.
That is a needle's eye of what was budgeted, Mr. Speaker. Only 11% of a $15 million budget was spent. Magwisa. I read it.
Interpret Magwesa.
Oh my God, oh Lord. Huh? I really wonder what this $1.6 million was spent on. It is time we do greater things with our tourism industry. We are already doing great things because we are a natural gem. It is not the infrastructure of Dominica that has us doing these great things in the tourism industry. It is a natural feature. I would like to take this opportunity to highlight the awards as stated during Honorable McIntyre's address. Dominica has been named #1 Caribbean destination by Travel and Leisure, top destinations by Forbes and Lonely Planet, one of the world's greatest places by Time Magazine, and we were also highlighted in the 2023 Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. I would also like to highlight the Secret Bay Hotel and Resort for being named Travel and Leisure's #1 resort and hotel in the Caribbean for the 3rd time in 3 years. Thank you to the Secret Bay team for marketing our beloved gem.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, as I move on from the tourism aspect of my presentation, I would like to give the definition of climate resilient because it appears to be unknown. According to the Oxford Dictionary, climate resilience can be defined as the ability to prepare for, recover from, and adapt to climate change impacts. I repeat, climate resilience can be defined as the ability to prepare for, recover from, and adapt to climate change impact.
Yes, teacher.
The first keyword here is to prepare for.
Yes, teacher.
Hence, we need to stop using the term only in the context of recovering from or bouncing back and place our commitment to being proactive. That means we should get rid of all these tarpaulins we keep using, because as I speak today, there is no such thing as a climate resilient tarpaulin. None. Moving on to the Salisbury constituency, the heart of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, during the presentation on Tuesday, it bothered me that in all the plans listed in the fiscal year, not one mention was made for the people of Salisbury, Montreat, and Kulibistri. This troubled me, and I knew it troubled a lot of people from that constituency that were listening to the budget address, because a lot of them reached out to me. One resident of Kulibistri said to me, after listening to the ministers of housing speak of Kulibistri, and I quote them, "I give up on a better and safer Kulibistri." So, Honorable Minister for Housing, the people of Kulibistri need more than money for renovation of their homes. If we are really taking the term climate resilience seriously, we would not stand here in this house and speak of renovations of homes for the people of Kulibistri, an area that is recognized as a disaster-prone area. We should speak of the relocation of these villages or the building of a well-designed retaining wall. So, Honorable Minister for Housing, thank you for the renovation assistance, because the people in these homes are still living. Thank you for the renovation assistance. Thank you. So, Honorable Minister for Housing, thank you for the renovation assistance. The renovation assistance, the money, the cash. Because you're not giving us enough time to rush.
Go ahead, Laurie.
The Honorable Ministers.
Yeah, honorable members, not all of you. Yes.
So, Honorable Minister for Housing, thank you for the renovation assistance. The people of Kulibistri in these homes are living in fear, and they do deserve more as citizens who contribute to the growth of this country. So let's go sit with the people of Kulibistri, listen to them, and stop complaining about the things we as a government are supposed to do for our people. I am going to expand further on the struggles of the people of Kulibistri face. I heard the Minister for Housing spoke excitedly about FET, so I'm going to use FET to explain something further. The past weekend was the Fete of St. Anne. This fete was celebrated by the communities of Bath Estate, Maho, and Kulibistri. Bath Estate, big truck on the road for Juvie. Maho, Quail Festival lineup that was more festive than what was launched on Friday. But Kulibistri, the hard-working bar owners, did their thing, and I applaud them for that. If it was not for them, there would not have been a Fete Kulibistri. Then we sit here and listen to the representative for the St. Joseph constituency say that
Members.
And this is what we do. We listen when I talk to you.
Please allow the senator to deliver.
One can talk at a time, and this is how it goes. You listen.
Senator.
Thank you. But Kulibistri, the hard-working bar owners did their thing. If it was not for them, there would not have been a Fete Kulibistri.
Members, please allow the senator to deliver. Give her a chance to deliver. Proceed.
Then to sit here and listen to the representative for the St. Joseph constituency say that everything shared under the Dominican Labour Party is shared around Dominica equally. Boy, oh boy, that statement lacks a lot of truth. So with that being said, I am asking this government to work with us to help our people. Bring facts to the statement made by Honorable Lloyd. According to my colleague, help us help them, which will result to helping you. In 2015, the residents of Kulibistri suffered severe damage from the passage of Tropical Storm Erika. Since then, the people have been living in fear whenever there is heavy rainfall. 2 years after that, they were once again affected by the passage of Hurricane Maria. It is now almost 8 years after the first incident and no assistance came to the people of Kulibistri, not forgetting the renovation. In the Honorable Minister of Finance presentation, he made mention of many projects to be done in this fiscal year. Plans for housing relocation, and plans for retaining river walls. However, there was no mention of any of these for the people of Kulibistri. My plea is to give the people of Kulibistri a little something in that $1 billion. It is time these people stop living fearfully whenever there's a rainy weather. Moving on. One of the guidelines suggested by the EU to nations offering CBI is that the investment must reach the host country. And when it gets there, it should not be diverted to account in any other country. So you know what these other people want now? A share of that CBI money. CBI this, CBI that. Give us our share. That big cake CBI. That big cake. Give us a little piece in it. Not much, a little piece. Let us show. Let us show all you. Let us show the honorable members of this house how to use this CBI money and enhance the place. Let us show you guys, these honorable members, how to, because apparently they do not know. A promising community with many aspects, sports, tourism, health, and agriculture. We want to show you how to use that CBI money to boost your economy and uplift your people. To the Minister for Agriculture, on behalf of the people of Grand Savannah, I would like to say thank you for the beginning of the water irrigation system project. We would like to see the completion of this project and do hope it does not remain incomplete like many other projects. In the last fiscal year, $500,000 was spent on the Calm Road. For a farm road which provides farm access to farmers ranging from Maho all the way to Koliu. This total, in my opinion, was not enough to allocate for such an important farm access road. I recall 3 years ago, the past representative for the Salisbury constituency was promised over 90 acres of land for the young farmers in the Southern York area. The young farmers were contacted, given forms to fill out, but to this day, there is no formal communication regarding this land. The farmers are running impatient. Mr. Speaker, during the Honorable Minister for Agriculture address, he mentioned a walkthrough plan for Wednesday in the Carhome Cuba Road area. What he did not do was extend an invitation to the representatives of the Salisbury constituency to join that tour. Further recommendations to the Minister of Agriculture: take a tour to the Guamon area, the Petit Marcoucherie, Monrachet Heights, and other farm access roads in the constituency of Salisbury also. Then ask the former Minister of Agriculture for the $27,010,298 he failed to spend during the last fiscal year, and help the farmers get proper access to the road. Honorable Roland, you have shown a passion for agriculture, and the people are depending on you to save this industry. Do not let them down. To the Minister of Health, when we are really ready to compare Dominica healthcare system to that of other countries, let's take a look at the construction of a polyclinic in the community of Salisbury. A polyclinic is a clinic where both general and specialist examinations and treatments are available to outpatients. Because of Salisbury's central location between the town of Portsmouth and Roseau and its fast-growing population, a bigger health facility like a polyclinic is a necessity in the improvement of our health system. To the Minister of Sports, the community of Salisbury has been blessed with some of the top athletes also. Over the weekend, two of the members of the Salisbury Sports Committee emerged first place in the Windward Islands School Games held in Grenada. The Sports Committee has held successful sporting activities in the community, from the road race to the football tournaments. Salisbury is doing great things in sports. To further facilitate those sporting activities to assist the youth, we need proper sporting facilities in Salisbury. The former Minister of Sports once gave a commitment in Parliament to give the Salisbury playing field priority for enhancement. He is no longer the Minister for Sports, and the playing field is still awaiting that commitment. Also, the basketball court, which has hosted many big basketball games in the 1990s, is in dire need for assistance. Help keep sporting alive in Salisbury. Yes. Minister for Tourism, the village of Salisbury has one of the most beautiful beaches on the West Coast, one with adequate space and scenery to become a top tourist beach destination. In 2014, a plan was made to enhance the Salisbury beach to make it accessible to the cruise passengers. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that enhancement was moved to the Mero Beach instead. Further plans were made to enhance the beach even after with a river retaining wall, but due to circumstances and plans deemed more important, this didn't happen also. This beach is slowly becoming one of the top favorite beaches on the West Coast, as many people are becoming aware of it. This beach benefits the Sunset Bay Club, the Stone Edge Hotel, the Tamarind Tree Hotel, and the soon completed Tranquility Beach Resort. This beach has a bright future and will enhance the tourism project. So my plea to you, the Minister of Tourism, come take a walk on the Salisbury Beach. Yes. Ensure you use your entire budget this fiscal year. If you are going to ignore some plans that we did in the past budget, then allocate the money somewhere else. Come work with us to enhance the soon-to-be best beach on the West. Moving on. Mr. Speaker, not enough is being done.
5 more minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move a motion. I'd like to move a motion that the Honorable Senator be given an extension of 10 minutes to complete her presentation.
I second it.
It has been moved and seconded that the Honorable Senator be given an additional 10 minutes. Those in favor? Aye. That's what he proposed. Those against? The ayes have it. You have an additional 10 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, not enough is being done. Mr. Speaker, not enough is being done for our young people. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Speaker, not enough is being done for our young people. There needs to be greater focus on the youth. The record shows that the majority of students who studies abroad do not return. And they cannot be blamed. If you go around and listen to the young people inside and outside of Dominica, they continue to say that Dominica is not for young people. And we can call them all kinds of names: lazy, drug addicts, like to see, which apparently is not a problem, and the list still goes on. But the facts will remain. Energy flows where focus goes. We are not focused on the holistic, sustainable development of our young people, and it shows. The world we live in today requires faster, lighter innovations backed by accessible, open-minded financing that will allow for world-class problem-solving innovation and business solutions that will drive our country and people forward. In STEM, business, in innovative healthcare, including medicinal marijuana. But the young people of Dominica need a supportive partner that they can lean on. They need people who will work with them and support them. Help the young people help themselves. Any environment that doesn't see a future in its young people outside of basic sports and academia is destined for failure. And Dominica has been failing. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to lose our young people if we do not invest in them now. During the budget address last Tuesday, the Minister of Finance informed of an increase in the price of birth, marriage, and death certificates by 300%. It is a hard blow to the people of Dominica. Boy. This is insane. We cannot continue to inflict costs on the people to maintain our extreme overspending and bad money management. Yes. We are already suffering from inflation. Inflation that is something beyond our control. Simple documents like birth paper should not cost so much. Once again, the vulnerable have to pay for a habit of spending in areas that are not necessary. I am sure that the government can decrease spending by removing the misfit ministers, which reset it into parliament to avoid costs. I've heard so much about CBI during this budget presentation. CBI this and CBI that. If not CBI, then what? Why can't the millions from CBI cover such a small cost? When will the people be the direct beneficiary of these CBI funds? Would you rather be vulnerable people? Would you rather the vulnerable people of Dominica suffer? So much for being a government for the vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, the increase of the salary for public servants by 6% as of September 1st, 2023 was spoken about also. This is a great initiative, long-awaited initiative. Thank you, Dr. McIntyre. However, when will the public servants who have been working in the government system for years be appointed? Will you take a look at the increase of, while you take a look at the increase of salary, take a look at the thousands of public servants who are qualified for appointment but not being appointed. Take a look at the government pensioners who have not received a pension increase in 25 years. Wow. I believe some provisions were already made with the government, so it is time to give them what they deserve. They have bills to pay and they want to buy strawberries also. Yes. Government pensioners deserve a pension increase. It is 25 years too long. Mr. Speaker, have you taken a look at that insulting minimum hourly wage? It is time our minimum hourly wage allow us to make a rice and sardine. As I round up my presentation, I would like to point out one more observation. And that is during the fiscal year of 2020 to 2023, Many of the key ministries to enhance the country's economy was underperformed with the spending of the monies allocated. They used less than 50% of these totals: health, agriculture, public works, tourism, just to name a few. I wish my Honorable Prime Minister was there. Honorable Prime Minister, in one of your political campaigns, you stated, and I quote, "You know, they're missing the salary. They start crying, oh boy, my salary, my salary, my salary. They were too lazy, ladies and gentlemen, and we have fired them. No more lazy people in the Dominican Parliament." Boy, PM boy, Prime Minister, by the looks of it and the incompetency of your ministers, you need to fire more. And if you don't see the need to fire them, maybe you should look at firing yourself, Mr. Prime Minister. I thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister of National Security, Honorable Blackmore, you are recognized. You may proceed.
This is what should represent.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this budget in its entirety. And I want to, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, to congratulate Dr. Irvin McIntyre on the delivery of his maiden budget presentation. And I hope that the Prime Minister does not take offense to what I'm about to say, but I will say it. But, Mr. Speaker, the cool and calm way Dr. McIntyre presented that budget, Mr. Speaker, speaks to his character. And, of course, he did it nice and easy. Mr. Speaker, so going forward, I shall not be calling him Dr. Mac. I shall be calling him nice and easy. Mr. Speaker, it has been a couple of days of good debate, good presentation, good theater, among others. But listening to some of my colleagues on the other side, most of them, I get the sense, Mr. Speaker, that for the past 20 years thereabout, since the commencement of that great revolution, they have been snoring and surely fast asleep. And permit me, Mr. Speaker, to refer to one of the most inspiring, from my standpoint, sermons from Dr. Martin Luther King. Many of us, when we speak about him, we make a reference to the big speech that he gave, "I have a dream." But a man who believes in the Lord, I think I remember him for that great summons that he gave. And he gave those summons, Mr. Speaker, and he reminds us of this man who went up a mountain top for a long sleep for 20 years. And when he went up the mountain top, the picture on the sign was that of King George III, the King of England then. After having slept for 20 years and he came back down, the picture that he saw on the sign was that of George Washington, the President of the United States of America. When he looked at the picture, Mr. Speaker, what he was struck by was not the fact that he slept for 20 years, but he knew not himself, Mr. Speaker, because not only he slept for 20 years, but he slept while a great revolution was taking place, Mr. Speaker. And that, Mr. Speaker, that great transformation, a point in time, Mr. Speaker, when lives were changed and impacted. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Mr. Speaker, for the past 19 years, Mr. Speaker, has led this great party, the Dominican Labour Party, and this great country, Mr. Speaker, to the greatest revolution this country has ever seen, Mr. Speaker, since its independence, Mr. Speaker, and that's a fact, Mr. Speaker. And let me just say it further to them who have been sleeping, snoring. And one of the great liabilities, Mr. Speaker, for falling asleep during the Great Revolution. Living amid, Mr. Speaker, those changes is the inability of those who have been falling asleep, Mr. Speaker, to undergo the changes of the mindset, Mr. Speaker, consistent with that change. That is why we are calling for a national reset. And I hope some of them who have been sleeping, some of them deliberately so, will be awakened, Mr. Speaker, and participate in this national reset endeavor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this great revolution that I speak about has touched every household in this country, including those who have been sleeping for the past 19 years, Mr. Speaker. And I can recall those days, Mr. Speaker, that because of this great social transformation that this Labour Party has led since the independence of this country, Mr. Speaker, who never had house before, now have house, Mr. Speaker, who never had girlfriend except Senator Sean Douglas, now have girlfriend, Mr. Speaker, who never had access, Mr. Speaker, to health care, Mr. Speaker, now have access to health care irrespective of your creed, political class, Mr. Speaker. And to say it further, we never contemplated during that transformation to have been at a point in our development, our social development, Mr. Speaker, as a people, to now go to the hospital and your heart conditions can be diagnosed. You can be treated, Mr. Speaker. This, Mr. Speaker, is evidence of the great transformation that the Dominican Party government has been talking about, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, going to housing, I can recall, Mr. Speaker, that the average man until Labour had no toilets and washing facilities. The dignity of life was undermined. And of course, the poor people of this country were being trod upon and upon, Mr. Speaker. And it's Bob Marley who uses this great metaphor, treading on the wine press, Mr. Speaker. The poor man standing on the wine press, making the wine, and shortly thereafter, Mr. Speaker, he has been oppressed, Mr. Speaker. Labour Party has changed that, Mr. Speaker, in this country. We have changed that in this country, Mr. Speaker. And the young men and young women, Mr. Speaker, are now participating in the national development endeavor by having Peace of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are talking about when we talk about transformation, Mr. Speaker. I can recall, going back to housing, when we used to patrol the street, the CID folks, when it rained, we were scared to go and stand up under a window. Because in those days, Mr. Speaker, before Labour, people passed their refuge in plastic bags and other things, Mr. Speaker. So we are scared to stand up on a window because a plastic bag of human manure may have fallen on your head, Mr. Speaker. That is what we have stopped. That is what we experienced in this country before the Dominican Labour Party administration, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, we can laugh if we want, but I'm talking the truth. I do not believe in the fundamentals of transmigration or reincarnation, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, if I were to get the permission to be hypothetical, and let us suppose, Mr. Speaker, that the great leaders was going to the great beyond, Edward Leblanc, James Eugene Charles, Bruce Douglas, Pierre Charles. I will not reference Patrick John because he just passed on recently, Mr. Speaker. If they were to return to this planet Earth and in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, they would be, Mr. Speaker, immensely amazed, Mr. Speaker, to see the transformation that has taken place in this country in every facet of our development, Mr. Speaker. And I know, Mr. Speaker, I know that James Eugene Charles would have been amazed and would be shaking the hands of our Prime Minister when she's seeing for herself the construction of our international airport, Mr. Speaker, because she begged the United States of America to push back her force, and it was stopped by the United States Workers' Party. And today, Mr. Speaker, through our own financial resources, we are building for the people of Dominica a brand new international airport, Mr. Speaker. that talks about our resilience, of financial resilience as a people, Mr. Speaker. And I know the leader of the opposition made reference to geothermal. And she said that the Honorable Pierre Charles, not Dr. Vincent Anderson, the Member of Parliament for Granby, who started the initiative and speaking about the geothermal. We salute our past leader, Pierre Charles. We salute the stalwart that he was and the work he has done. But one thing that is consistent is that he was the leader of the Dominican Labour Party. But I want to say to him, leader of the opposition, let us suppose if Io Libra were to return to this country in a different advent, he would have been tremendously proud of the Prime Minister to see that he in 1974 started, Mr. Speaker, speaking about the need to develop our potential in geothermal energy. And he went to Parliament and passed the Geothermal Development Act, Mr. Speaker, which was further amended in 1975. But he, Mr. Speaker, left politics and because of a self-imposed exile and went to Vickers. Nobody spoke about it again. We had the Freedom Party. We had the Workers' Party for 4 years. Then we had Pierre Charles to start talking about it. But, Mr. Speaker, let me say to the Dominican public that if Prime Minister Scarlett as the Prime Minister and Vince Henderson, Mr. Speaker, we shall bring geothermal energy to every household in Dominica and to the business sector, Mr. Speaker. That is what we promised, Mr. Speaker, in this year's budget. Man, Mr. Speaker, I want to make reference before I go to the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs, Mr. Speaker. Senator Sean Douglas is not there this morning for apparent reasons, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, he spoke and he tongue lashed, Mr. Speaker, the budget, the tongue lashed his former colleagues who fed him, Mr. Speaker, when he was part of the government, Mr. Speaker. He tongue lashed everything. He called, Mr. Speaker, for Dominica to go back to the days of darkness, the IMF. A guy who wants to be a leader, you know. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm not surprised. Because something happened to Sean Douglas, Mr. Speaker, in Granville in the year 2000, Mr. Speaker. A lady, and may her soul rest in peace, by the name Elizabeth Israel alias Mapampo. Some of us in Parliament are very young. We will not recall that. That's history for you. Write it down, Mr. Speaker. And that service was being held for, basically, was the last sacrament. The priest officiating made the mistake because the lady was feeble, 125 years then, and asked him to hold the chalice of wine. And Sean Douglas drank Mapampo wine, Mr. Speaker, at the age of 125 years, Mr. Speaker. In public view, Mr. Speaker, 125 years old, Mr. Speaker, Mapampo cried profusely of blood, Mr. Speaker. And the poor lady died shortly thereafter, Mr. Speaker. From that time, his life has never recovered, Mr. Speaker. So I'm not surprised, Mr. Speaker, he is coming there angry about everything and distorting the facts. Mr. Speaker, I want to say further, Mr. Speaker. May I say further, Mr. Speaker?
So what is the relevance of
The
that?
relevance of that, Mr. It speaks about his character. So I'm not surprised, Mr. Speaker. He comes to the Parliament and misrepresents the facts. Because once you have live in, Mr. Speaker, it's a bad thing. Mr. Speaker,
Translate live in.
when you have light. That's how we go to church, when you have light. Live in. Mr. Speaker, let us put into context this great social transformation that we're talking about. At a time when it is taking place, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Vince Anderson quite eloquently made reference to the realities of the world in terms of economics, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, when we are building an airport for almost $1 billion, when we're proceeding with our geothermal endeavor, when we're building and constructing health centers throughout the country, when we're ensuring that our public servants are well paid, Mr. Speaker, we must be mindful of the global realities. Mr. Speaker, two serious economic shocks happened in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, since our independence, or since our attainment of statehood, Mr. Speaker. And in 1979, the economy declined by 18.7%, Mr. Speaker. 18. We had the Hurricane David. There was no other period in the history of this country we had this tremendous decline in our economy, except for 2020, when it declined by 16% because of COVID-19, Mr. Speaker. We are underestimating the impact of COVID-19. When we read about the 1918 pandemic, the Spanish flu, that killed 50 million people globally, we never knew that. We read about it, but we lived it, Mr. Speaker, because COVID-19 was grinding the human resource component. Everything came to a halt, Mr. Speaker. And the biggest player in the food chain, Mr. Speaker, was affected, human beings, Mr. Speaker. But that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, we are moving on because of the creative leadership of the Dominican Labour Party administration, Mr. Speaker. Let us not underestimate that, Mr. Speaker. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker. So, going back to geothermal, and Senator Sean Douglas, Mr. Speaker, spoke about geothermal and spoke about Crispin Greger. Yes, I was a minister for a number of years. I worked closely with Vince Anderson. And he was the one, Mr. Speaker, who introduced me as the minister then for energy to the members of the Clinton Foundation at Hilton Hotel in Barbados, Mr. Speaker, to provide technical support for geothermal at Endeavour, Mr. Speaker. And the amount of work that this administration has done, because geothermal development, so you're a scientist, Mr. Speaker, takes a long time. And because of the risk involved, especially in the initial stage, you will find no investor wanting to invest because of the risk involved. So government has to lead the way, Mr. Speaker, therefore. And that is what this government has been able to do on the Roosevelt Skyrit, Mr. Speaker, is to take the risk and to think outside the box, Mr. Speaker. And when they talk about geothermal energy development, in Costa Rica, they have been talking about geothermal development from 1979. And in 2023, it accounts for 13.3% of the energy mix, Mr. Speaker. So what we did, firstly, Mr. Speaker, we ensured that we did the study, the survey, and we look at this, the area, the valley, inclusive of the boiling lake, to establish whether you have the resources there. Having established, Mr. Speaker, within that radius in the geographical location, that the energy is there, we have to actually establish and to determine the quality of the resource. So we undertook, Mr. Speaker, what we call the test wells. The test wells, we did all that. That's a lot of work, you know. For us to laugh, they used to go up there, open the wells, just to watch the smoke, etc. Used to laugh us. We did the test wells, and we did a production well. And today, Mr. Speaker, again, under the leadership of Roosevelt Skyrit and Vince Henderson and the Dominican Labour Party administration, we have been the furthest so far in developing that energy to ensure that it gets to the household. And we can also, Mr. Speaker, attract energy-intensive industry in this country to push this country forward, Mr. Speaker. That is why I'm supporting, Mr. Speaker, with all my heart, because we did a study. We look at a small plant of 10 megawatts, and we established the hypothesis, Mr. Speaker, that if we were to have a 10 megawatts plant, at the end of the study, that the price of energy would go down. At the end, based on the results of the study, it's proved that it would have came down at least by 10 cents, 10 US cents. Can you imagine? So this is a game changer for us in this country. Everybody uses energy. So think of it. When we get to the stage, we are talking green. Honorable Dennis has made reference to that quite well. When we will get to the point of having an energy mix of hydro and geothermal. That is development. That is leadership. That is transformation, Mr. Speaker. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you're talking about, Mr. Speaker. So you can't come in this house there, come in there, Mr. Speaker, and want to give us a lecture on fiscal management. Yes. Okay? As the press secretary, Mr. Speaker, the press, if you're talking about fiscal management and wastage, left to Senator Sean Douglas, the Treasury would have been bankrupt on breakfast, Mr. Speaker. Breakfast? For what breakfast again now? Egg and bacon? He wanted to make a mistake. Honorable Pierre Charles Mills, so rest in peace, and brought him to the U.S. as the press secretary. And he said, in a record, I'm talking about wastage.
Yes, because you see, I don't want us to get involved in irrelevance and personality attack. So let's proceed.
Okay, all right, I take it back. Yeah, but okay. You called people sexist yesterday, but that's fine. I take it back. So, Mr. Speaker, going back to that. So we shall ensure, Mr. Speaker, that geothermal gets to the household, and geothermal is a contributor to the gross domestic product, Mr. Speaker. That is what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some comments were made also by the member of Marigot, the member of Parliament for Marigot. And yesterday, with his characteristic smile, he came also and told me, when you're speaking, not to give me blues, you know. But I said to him, as the Minister for National Security and Legal Affairs, my role is to prevent people from getting blues, not to give people blues. Now, he's a guy, a cool guy. He speaks with a characteristic smile, but I was always told at university, as a police officer, I knew as an investigator, once someone is always smiling, you have to watch him. You have to watch him. You have to be watching because, you know, he always has something coming up. So, Mr. Speaker, I can understand a woman always, but a man always smiling, a man, before you watch him, gigi, Mr. Speaker. That is not funny. I'll tell you why. Because why you're not watching him do something, eh? So, Mr. Speaker, what's a cool guy? You talk your language, this kind of stuff there in Parliament. The thing that the ordinary man on the street understand. I understand that. But, Mr. Speaker, implicit in his contribution was some misinformation. Because he created the impression that it is legal to smoke marijuana in a public place. And I am baffled that they say that when he goes up, man putting smoke in his people's face, etc. I would expect that a Rastafari, Mr. Speaker, would really like the spiritual, sense from the smoke of the herb. Jaja herb, you get your point? So I'm not sure if you have the locks for as a style, etc. But I want to just point him, Mr. Speaker. I want to point him to, we came as a responsible government, Mr. Speaker, in 2020, and decriminalized the possession of 20 grams and less. And that was done for a deliberate purpose, Mr. Speaker, because what we found, a number of young people, their future was denied because they possessed and had conviction for simple possession. They were not able to get a green card. They were turned down for jobs, notwithstanding their qualification. The Labour Party government, the progressive government, cannot tolerate that. And in retrospect, we should have done that before, long before. But we have done it, and we should be applauded for that. And it says those under the drug misuse of prevention and Amendment Act number 16 of 2020, section 8, section A1 says that it shall be unlawful or illegal to have in your possession more than 20 grams of marijuana. So if you go to section 7B, 1 and 2 of the same act, it says that it shall not be lawful for anyone to smoke cannabis in a public place. And apart from the offense, it stipulates the penalty. It says anyone, therefore, who does and commits an offense, insofar as what I've just read is concerned, is liable on summary conviction of a fine of $1,500. That is what we have put in place. So the notion that, Mr. Speaker, that the Labour Party administration was so irresponsible and came to Parliament and passed a measure and to allow the smoking of marijuana in the public domain is fundamentally misleading and deliberately harmful, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to say that. Mr. Speaker, you spoke about also brothels, etc., etc. I'm a man, Mr. Speaker. I have never have been someone who is germane to the idea of going to brothels, etc., for entertainment or amusement or dancing. But I just want to caution the Member of Parliament for Marigot that when he's going to those localities, he must have at the back of his mind that he's doing so at his own risk. Because Section 17 of Chapter 1049 of the Dominican Laws of Dominica prohibit, Mr. Speaker, those kind of amusement, inclusive also of dancing, Mr. Speaker. So do not try to play on the minds of the young people. Please, if you intend to do it, be very careful, my dear friend. Be very careful. Check this out. Mr. Speaker, this economy, unlike what I have said, is growing. And I want to understand and put in context, Mr. Speaker. When they said on the other side, Senator Sean Douglas and others, that poverty is at the highest, people are doing so badly. But, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me just to make reference to some information I have, Mr. Speaker. As of this month, Mr. Speaker, you have 39,064 legally licensed vehicles on the road of this country. On the streets, 39,064. This far supersedes the number of households. Do your math? It means that some people may have one vehicle per household. But what I'm struck by, Mr. Speaker, 26,982 of those vehicles are privately owned. Privately owned, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, public service vehicles, people who have vehicles to hire, they're making a livelihood from that. Right? We're talking about 3,231. Are those indicators of a country where people who are not doing well, who don't have money, who are destitute? I'm just trying to understand that. And rentals, Mr. Speaker, 1,267 rentals we have on the road, among others, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to highlight that. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I want to make reference to the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I will not have the time, neither will I be asking for the time, to speak on every division and department within that said ministry. I will highlight do some highlights in some key areas, except to say, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the effort of the Permanent Secretary, the heads of department of the 16 divisional departments that we have within the ministry. I want to commend them for the effort and the support thus far. Down to the cleaners, the messengers, and the drivers, thank you very much for your support. And I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. It is said it's difficult to work with me because I want to get everything done one time. But in the national reset, we have to double up, Mr. Speaker. But I want to commend those who have been working with us in the ministry. I never refer to a ministry as my ministry, the ministry that I've been afforded the opportunity right now by the Prime Minister to head. Mr. Speaker, I want to touch briefly on the whole issue of criminal justice reform. And the Minister for Finance made reference to that in his presentation. The ministry plays a key role, Mr. Speaker, in ensuring this country remains safe and just and resilient. But, Mr. Speaker, an efficient criminal justice system is key to the issue of peace and order in any society. And therefore, it has to be functioning well, and it has to be responsive to the needs of the people. Going forward in this new financial year, we have begun the process of reform, but we shall intensify our effort to ensure that it's done. And we must not assume a narrow perspective when we speak about criminal justice system. It starts from the time a report has been made to the police, the manner in which it is investigated, the manner in which it is prosecuted, and the manner in which cases are adjudicated before the court. And the sentences that are being laid down, Mr. Speaker, must be appropriate and must be consistent with the crime. And it must be done in a timely fashion, Mr. Speaker. The public, therefore, has every right to question certain things when cases take a very long time, Mr. Speaker. And in that regard, we shall ensure, although we have started the process, earlier this year we came to Parliament and we passed a series of family bills, because when you talk about criminal justice reform and system, we also have to talk about the juvenile system, the juvenile justice system. And then some of the bills that we passed, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the protection of young people, and children. So we have started and we have begun the process, and we shall move forward as we are going forward. But, Mr. Speaker, our system is so organized at the Supreme Court level, the High Court level, that persons who have violated the laws and who are brought before the court have to be tried by a judge and jury. And therefore, when indictable offenses are heard, whether by way of paper committal, because all you need to establish at the low court for an indictable offense is as to whether there is adequate evidence for the matter to be heard by the judge and jury. Once that is established, Mr. Speaker,
30 more minutes.
that's good. Once that is established, Mr. Speaker, it seems to me, unless it is an extraordinary circumstance, especially in matters where you don't have limitation of statute, murder, rape, the possession of cocaine, and the trafficking of firearms, it seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that matter should be heard before the court, Mr. Speaker. And those are some of the issues that we have to examine, Mr. Speaker. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, the justice system has to be responsive to the needs of the people. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, cannot operate in a vacuum, Mr. Speaker, outside of society and the needs of society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we also have to talk about access to legal aid. And in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, we provide that service because even if somebody commits a crime, the person has a right to a fair trial. The person has a right to counsel. And those are the things that we in the Labour Party promote by having a legal aid system, office with competent staff at the disposal of the people for those who actually need, who cannot afford counsel. And that is the intention. And in the new reset that we speak of, we have to also ensure that the people who come before legal aid are the people who cannot afford counsel, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to say that, Mr. Speaker. The other issue is the whole issue of the penal system. And therefore, we have to look at the prisons. And as we talk about our family laws, one of the laws which shall be bring back to Parliament is the whole issue of the Child Justice Bill. And then we have to ensure that we have the infrastructure separate and distinct from social services to have the counselors within the court, the family court, and also to have a juvenile facility. It's a jail, but it has to take a correctional approach. We will be looking at the prison system, and we're thinking about having a commissioner of prisons and corrections, Mr. Speaker. Let me just say, as we are on the prisons, Mr. Speaker, that recently you heard some noises out in the public domain. And in every jail, you're going to have legal issues. But I was happy that within 15 minutes, the matter was contained. We in the Labour Party, and I as a minister, believe, notwithstanding the fact that you're a prisoner, you're entitled to human treatment and your rights that are afforded by law. But it has to be said also and understood by the inmates and the prison officers that a jail is not a home setting. A jail is not a home setting, Mr. Speaker. You cannot be in prison. You have to be supervised. and expect to get the same liberties and freedom that you get at your home. You want to say what food you want, what time you want it, when you want it. You want to have cornflakes and peanut butter in your cells. This is not a jail, Mr. Speaker. We have to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we set the demarcations, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that your sentence to jail, you have to be respected, but you have to understand also that you're in jail. If you do not want to be in jail, behave yourself, Mr. Speaker. So, what we have done for the past couple of years, we have spent $2.3 million at the prisons. As we speak, and in this year's financial estimate, we have 16 projects, Mr. Speaker, within the ministry. Over $5 million provided. And then we're spending to ensure that we build a secondary fence. As we speak, we have engaged a contractor. The whole issue, Mr. Speaker, of a number of people or inmates at the remand facility, because you will appreciate that we had Hurricane Maria, and then we had COVID-19. So the courts were not operating, Mr. Speaker, at the maximum level to have been operating at the time. Consequently, the population has gone up. So what we are doing as we speak is that ensuring that we standardize the remand section and to have washroom facility in every cell. When I became the minister, at the maximum security block, we had no washroom facility. What we ensured that we did at the time was to put washroom facility in the cells for people at the maximum security because they're human beings. I was criticized, and it was said it's because there were police officers there. I put that in. That was not the case, Mr. Speaker. So we are moving forward. We shall move forward, Mr. Speaker, because what we want to ensure, because there are some people, by virtue of the crimes that they commit, the brutality in the crime, they should spend their life in jail or a long time in jail. But there are some people we have to give a ray of hope. So we have to place emphasis on rehabilitation. And that shall be, Mr. Speaker, the emphasis that we shall be placing going forward as time progresses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while we are at the prison, I've been engaging, along with the Permanent Secretary and others, the prisons on a very regular basis. And the most outstanding issue that they had was manpower. What we did, Mr. Speaker, was to increase the establishment by 25. As we speak, of course, the new officers coming in have to be vetted by the police. So we have gotten approval for 9 so far, and the other officer candidates are being vetted by the police. And we're hoping in the next couple of months to have the 25 officers that we're speaking about. The fire and ambulance services. I want to commend the fire and ambulance services for the tremendous work they have been doing, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend them during COVID-19. And we're ensuring, and the new national reset, that when you get a call within 5 minutes, you have to leave. Within 5, we cannot be talking about national reset and everything the same thing. Within 5 minutes, you have to respond. And we're getting right there, Mr. Speaker. We have, the last time I presented in this honorable House, 34 additional positions were created to increase the establishment. But during my engagement, Mr. Speaker, with the rank and file, there were a number of officers acting in vacant position. What we found, Mr. Speaker, because very often they like to blame the Prime Minister's Secretary, that people were not being appraised. And then the recommendation would not be made for them to be appointed. But I'm happy to report this to this honorable House. As of this month, Mr. Speaker, the 15 officers who have been acting in a vacant position have all been permanently appointed, Mr. Speaker. We are talking about 6 leading fire officers, 5 station fire officers, and 4 sub-station officers. And this is what the Labour Party is all about, because if we want people to change their mindset, we have to improve the condition of work, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we are doing, creating the environment, Mr. Speaker. We are also ensuring, Mr. Speaker, that we are actually engaging more state attorneys. We have been doing that, and within the office of the DPP, the AG's chambers, and legal aid, Mr. Speaker. We've been doing that. And I wanted to say that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Magistrate Court, since most of our matters are disposed of at the Magistrate Court level because summary matters, emphasis has to be placed on that. We have to continue to look at the administrative structure, the manner in which cases are managed, and the manner in which cases are set and dates are assigned to cases. We, as we speak, shall be, Mr. Speaker, engaging two additional magistrates. But engaging additional magistrates, Mr. Speaker, without a proper administrative structure will not have so fast. That we have to get, as a people, as a nation, value for money, Mr. Speaker. Because the magistrates are the one who are controlling the bench, not the minister, not the prime minister. And we have to ensure, therefore, that you give the people the time that you're paid for. So the management of the cases, the management of the cases is critical to that, and ensuring that we have proper work plans for the magistrates, etc. We also shall be ensuring that we return to night courts, so people in the private sector who have matters, they might be busy during the daytime, they can come at night, Mr. Speaker, and to have the matters heard, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're all about, and we shall continue working in this direction to improve on the justice system, inclusive of all the agencies that form part of this very relevant system, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a lot was said about CBI, etc. I'm not going to add more to that, I don't have time, but the Prime Minister last night spoke, and people had their addresses written. So what the Prime Minister said was inconsequential to them, in far as educating them. If we listen to the Senator Rasadim, Lowry, Senator? Okay, I don't know him. So, Mr. Speaker. But I'm not sure why we're talking about the sale of passport. What does CBI means? CBI means what? Citizens, what? By investment. So it speaks for itself. But it's a deliberate ploy by members on the other side to black eye and to derail this program that has been so dear to us. And when they say that it's not being used for us, the people, the houses that we're getting, the airport that's going to transform this country, what are we talking about? Get up, stop snoring, get up. Be part of this great transformation, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, what we did to ensure our compliance with international best standards and practices, and recognizing the importance of a resilient and counterfeit-proof passport, we moved from the version without a passport that can be easily duplicated to a more resilient one, the e-passport, electronic passport. And when we started, we had some teething problems. People waited long for the applications to have been processed. And I promised as the minister, with time, that we're going to improve the processing. So, Mr. Speaker, what we did, as I said the last time, we introduced a shift system, we employ more people, and we improve on the processes. We have moved from applications taking 3 to 4 months, and I'm happy to report to this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, as of yesterday, as of the 17th of this month, we have issued 88,064 e-passports, Mr. Speaker. That speaks, Mr. Speaker, to the efficiency in which we have been able to apply in executing that service, Mr. Speaker. So, I want to also further report to this honorable House, Mr. Speaker, with a permission, that we have moved from applications for all and sundry, taking 4 months to 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker. 2 weeks. So you know, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, if you were to apply today, within 2 weeks, you'll be able to get your brand new passport. This is what the Dominican Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to ensure that we look at the processes and to ensure what can be done in 1 week's time. And then people who want emergency passport, and the word emergency speaks for itself. Somebody dies suddenly, you have to go to school, this kind of stuff, you know. But you cannot tell me that you know since last year that you're going to marry. You're going to marry, all right? You know you're going to marry, and then you have to go overseas and come and say you have emergency. What happened then is, cannot do that. You plan your thing, that's not an emergency. So an emergency is an emergency. And we have systems in place for that to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that this immigration department can respond to the needs, Mr. Speaker, of the Dominican public. And I want to take this opportunity to commend, Mr. Speaker, the Inspector St. Rose and his men and women for being able to withstand the pressures. And today, Mr. Speaker, we have a much more improved system, Mr. Speaker, of governance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the police. Let me just say, Mr. Speaker, for those in this country who believe they can impose fear among the public and believe that they're big butcher, they can kill when they want and they can firebomb when they want. Tell them they will not be allowed, Mr. Speaker, to create an environment of fear in this country. They will not be allowed, Mr. Speaker, as simple as that. And one day, the arm of the law will confront them, Mr. Speaker. We have to decide what country we want in this beautiful country. And going forward, Mr. Speaker, we shall put all the systems in place. We have a challenge now with the trafficking of illicit firearms. And I want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, to commend the police officers and the custom officers for being at the forefront. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, from 1920 to now, the police alone, I'm not spoken about the customs, have recovered 177 illegal guns, Mr. Speaker, from 2020 to now. 177 illegal weapons. During that same period, Mr. Speaker, 142 rounds of ammunition, that's 20 rounds. To give you a sense and magnitude of the problem that confront us, have been recovered. 112 people have been arrested and charged. 96 men and 16 women. Yes, women have illegal firearms too. And I know some women, they're shooting very well with both hands. And what is happening now, some of the women are holding the guns for a significant order. But how can a man love you? How can a man love you and give you to hold an illegal firearm for you? He doesn't want to go to jail, but he wants to go to jail. So why are you holding it for him, Mr. Speaker? During the same period, Mr. Speaker, 25 people have been convicted. And a fine of $271,000 have been imposed, Mr. Speaker, by the court. We have started, the Prime Minister has been leading from the front, to look at all the elements involved in illicit trafficking of firearms. And we shall be bringing all the law enforcement agencies together, namely the Customs, the police, and FIU, and to look at the origin, not only of firearms, but the components of firearms. Because for this trade to continue, it has to be facilitated. And we shall be going after everyone who is involved in that trade, Mr. Speaker. No stone shall be left unturned in our effort to rid the street and the society of illegal firearms, Mr. Speaker. And in that regard, I've been working closely with Impacts within CARICOM, and I want to commend the U.S. Through the instrumentality of Homeland Security. We shall be looking at ways, and we have already put in place the terms of reference for this agency that we're talking about, Mr. Speaker, to confront this menace of the society, Mr. Speaker. When say no, once you have an illegal firearm, you intend to use it. A firearm is a lethal weapon, and once you have it, you have to use it, Mr. Speaker. And that is something that we have to guard against. As we talk about the police, Mr. Speaker, earlier on I made reference to the importance of the criminal justice system. We shall be engaging immediately after the budget a consultant with tremendous experience in the area of investigation. When I came in as a recruit in CID, I worked with him. A tremendous talent, he had retired. And because the issue of statement writing, report writing, Mr. Speaker, the protecting of the crime scene, because at the crime scene, that's where all the evidence resides, and we have to ensure that the crime scene is not contaminated. It has to be. Today, I see before you have an event, you could say all kinds of social media people obstructing the police, etc., etc. Right? That's something we have to be very careful with. And the whole issue, Mr. Speaker, of proper report statement writing is something, of course, we shall continue to have. So we'll be having those workshops for a long period of time with all the various ranks in the police force, Mr. Speaker, immediately after the passage of this budget, Mr. Speaker. I want to say thank you to this gentleman. I hope he's listening. And it's good to have Dominicans with the requisite talent and they're so willing to assist as we strive in a collective endeavor to make this country a safer and better country for all of us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we heard a lot about the CBI and as it is, Dominica is a rogue country. Mr. Speaker, we have been able, over the years, to put in place one of the most robust law enforcement infrastructure to mitigate and investigate financial crimes, inclusive of money laundering, among others. And just 2 weeks ago, we had this ceremony, which was actually organized by the Regional Security System Asset Recovery Unit, where we launched, Mr. Speaker, the Asset Forfeiture Handbook and the seizure policy. That is critical because it provides a reference point with all our relevant laws and best practices and guidance, Mr. Speaker, for our investigators, be it from the customs standpoint, FIU, the police, to ensure that when you go after money and you seize money, you to be able to establish that it is linked to illegal activities. And that is how far we have been, Mr. Speaker. To the extent to which, Mr. Speaker, you heard the AG spoke about a couple of weeks ago, we went to Trinidad, and the minister played the leading role in that, to test our infrastructure and our governance structure insofar as the fight against money laundering is concerned on financial crime. And we rank the best in the sub-region, Mr. Speaker. So all the talk they're talking about there.
10 more minutes.
That's it. We rank the best in the region, Mr. Speaker. So I want to commend all the officers and also within the Financial Services Unit of the Ministry of Finance for the tremendous work, Mr. Speaker. And since the inception, when they say that nothing has been done by this government to combat money laundering, since the inception of the FIU, they have been able to forfeit, Mr. Speaker, in excess of $10 million, Mr. Speaker. That money is being put back into the fight against illegal activities, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're all about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, going back to the police, we shall be training an additional 50 police officers. The process is going on. The issue of mobility will be addressed. We have now more capacity on the water. I want to thank the government of the United States for a new patrol vessel because, Mr. Speaker, the war is also fought on the sea, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend them for that. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy about the reclassification exercise and the police officers. A lot of people talk about police, but how many of them would do the work that the police is doing? Somebody came to me and said to me, police. I said, okay, I'm going to make an arrangement with you. I'm going to call the chief of police, and I'm going to arrange a patrol with the Coast Guard on the Rain and Light Lane to send you in an open boat to confront the criminals. Say, me? That's not my job now. You get my point? We have to recognize the risk involved in that work. And then they have to be paid commensurate with what they have done, with what they're doing. So when they're going to take a raise like the nurses, we have to be happy for them, Mr. Speaker, because they're the ones who are keeping this country safe, Mr. Speaker. And that's it. So, Mr. Speaker, the issue of mobility for the police on the ground. I've been engaged in chief of police because I'm concerned about when you bounce a vehicle, you have to be held accountable. A report has to be made to the police. So, having said that, I want to express my gratitude of that of the government and myself, the ministry, to the People's Republic of China, the government, through the Chinese embassy, for agreeing to give the police an additional 21 vehicles, Mr. Speaker. I'm hoping there will be greater accountability and inspection, and I shall be insisting on that, Mr. Speaker, going forward, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so much more could have been said. So much more could have been said, Mr. Speaker. And I just came from a seminar on disaster mitigation in St. Lucia. And I was called on a side by a consultant, Mr. Speaker, in the area of disaster mitigation. And he said to me that he's so proud of Dominica. He's so proud of our Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker. Because Dominica is the only country in the sub-region. I heard the senator a while ago who spoke and ran away. All right? Dominica is the only country in the sub-region with a plan on resilience, supported by legislation, Mr. Speaker. The only country in the sub-region, I was told so too. And not only having a plan, but we have strategies. We have projects that have been implemented. Some of the people, my colleagues who spoke before me, spoke about the whole issue of the roads, etc. But I shall confine myself on the whole issue of disaster preparation, mitigation, and response. Mr. Speaker, let me report to this Honorable House that our preparedness and response insofar as disaster control is concerned in this country, infrastructure, is the best it has been in the history of this country, Mr. Speaker. And let me just say, I want to commend the Honorable Minister, Honorable Greta Roberts, for her beautiful contribution. We are talking about the shelters that we have spoken about, that we have in excess of shelter capacity for people who are in need of shelters. That never happened before. Even after the worst disaster, the worst hurricane in the history of Dominica, we have been able to decentralize, Mr. Speaker, our storage capacity, and very soon we'll be commissioning the one in Cotton Hill and Castle Bruce. Yeah. That is what we're all about. In addition, Mr. Speaker, to the regional shelters, that's what we're doing. We have, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the whole issue of secondary issues after a storm, the issue of flooding, etc. That's critical. But we have to ensure that we monitor water levels. We have installed 34 water gauges on high elevation to monitor and to report to us in quick time, transmit to us on our computers, so that the policymakers can be so informed and the public can be so informed. That's how far we have gotten, Mr. Speaker. We received over 200 telecommunication sets. We have installed repeaters throughout the country. We have issued 141 of those sets to the various communities in this country. And as we speak, we are organizing training for the usage of those communication sets. And before the year end, we shall ensure that every member of every village council in this country is trained as to how to properly use a telecommunication set, Mr. Speaker. We shall ensure that the community nurses are also trained and members of the disaster committees. Because, Mr. Speaker, when a disaster strikes, before the official arm of the response mechanism of the state can respond, your neighbor and the community members are the first responders, Mr. Speaker. That is why it's important to train and to prepare people from the community level. And I want to commend the ODM staff. We have been assisting various communities who are vulnerable to develop evacuation plan. Not only have we been doing that, we have been able to organize simulation exercise in Castle Bruce. And I want to thank the Member of Parliament for our leadership, Mr. Speaker. That is what the Labour Party is all about, Mr. Speaker. So stop the sleeping and come and say that nothing is happening, Mr. Speaker, like remote control people, Mr. Speaker. We shall continue, Mr. Speaker, in that endeavor, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to ask for additional time, but I'm saying to you, Mr. Speaker, that we will also be looking at the registry of titles to ensure that we have a system that is more robust so people can be served in a quicker, more effective manner. It is us who puts in place a registry of titles, knowing the importance of ownership of a title to one survivor and having a sense of dignity to have peace of this country. That is what we have been able to do, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I ended, and let me just say that I've given my entire adult life to public service. Few people can talk this way. My entire adult life to this country. And I can still do 110 push-ups every morning and night time, Mr. Speaker, and I praise God for that, Mr. Speaker. I praise God for that, Mr. Speaker. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that is the first time, and I've been there for a long time in Parliament, just for the record's sake, the Prime Minister and myself are the longest serving parliamentarians in this honorable House, Mr. Speaker. Type it. Let me just say, Mr. Speaker, it's the first time since I've been presenting this honorable House that I don't have to talk about the constituency. But let me just say to the people in my constituency that I have seen in this budget the relocation of the people of Campbell. And I did say to you, the people of Campbell, the only hope is to stay with the Dominica Labour Party. Because when I was going to do the master basketball court, my manager told me I wasting money. I deliberated on stopping there again since I've left. I'm happy to see that all and sundry throughout the country, Roseau people, Granby people, Marigot people, just name it. Right? Cassie Bruce. They want to take over the thing from Massa. So come in there. So I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, it was built, when we do things in the Labour Party, it's not for us, it's not for our children. It is for the people of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. So I'm happy about these things. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm calling on all of us, irrespective of our political color, Mr. Speaker. For those who want to maintain the status quo, for those who feel threatened by poor people elevating, for those who would have preferred a robust current administration to have adopted a laissez-faire attitude, to maintain the status quo, to preserve and to protect their individual status. We in the Labour Party is about empowering the common man to get that common man to the level of others who have been elevated over the years, Mr. Speaker. And the Labour Party, this great party that has formed the governance of this country for the past 23 years, Mr. Speaker, is the only hope for this country's survival and development, Mr. Speaker. You listen to them on the other side, young members on the other side, sorry.
Yes, but one more minute.
Yes, that's plenty. But, Mr. Speaker, the member for Marigot, cool guy, Senator Paris, I want to commend him as I end. Because he recognizes, Mr. Speaker, and he said in his submission that he is concerned about not having a Labour Party administration. Because without Labour, we will never have geothermal at the homes of our people in this country, Mr. Speaker. He recognizes that. So, Mr. Speaker, don't just lip sing. Come on board, Mr. Speaker. Be part of this great renaissance. Be part of this great national reset to take this country to the next level. We are fortunate, Mr. Speaker, to have been able to survive COVID-19 and Maria. And this is so because of our leadership, our financial resilience, and our resolve as a people. Mr. Speaker, may the good Lord bless this beautiful country. And may the good Lord keep the Dominican Labour Party in office, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House be suspended until 3 p.m.
Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be suspended until 3 p.m. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House stands suspended until 3 p.m.